Hey there, survivalists. We're living in some crazy times, and it seems like the world's heading towards an apocalyptic showdown sooner rather than later. But here's the problem. While we're preparing for the worst, some people are too busy worrying about the correct way to think, act, and speak. Yeah, I'm talking about the woke culture. Now don't get me wrong, being woke may win you some brownie points on social media, but when it comes to surviving an apocalypse, you're in big trouble if you're all about inclusivity, privilege checks, and safe spaces. Because when everything falls apart, you'll be too busy worrying about who deserves the last can of beans to actually survive the chaos. Today, we're going to break down exactly why you wouldn't survive the apocalypse if you're woke, and why you need to leave those ideologies behind if you want to make it. Alright, first things first. Survival is about being practical. When you're in the wild, or even in a post-apocalyptic world, you can't afford to spend your time having debates about who gets the most resources based on what's fair. Let me give you a real-life example. Imagine you're scavenging for food. You've got 3 days of supplies left, and there's 1 bag of rice left in the store. In a world where food is scarce, who gets it? The woke-minded thinker would probably try to hold a town hall meeting to vote on who deserves it most. Meanwhile, the rest of us are already hoarding our bags of rice and figuring out how to ration. Does that sound familiar? Instead of focusing on what's essential, like making sure your family stays alive, you'd be busy trying to figure out who fits your political or social ideals. Newsflash, the apocalypse doesn't care about your ideology. Another thing about woke culture is that it thrives on dependency. You're told that the government, society, or someone else should take care of you. Well, when the grid goes down and there's no one to rely on, that mindset is going to get you killed. In the world of survival, you don't wait for a rescue. You don't wait for a handout. You get to work. You adapt. You make things happen. But the woke culture? They'll be sitting there waiting for their rights to be protected instead of realizing that no one's coming to save them. Survivalists? We don't depend on anyone. We know how to take care of ourselves and our families. That's the only kind of survival that matters when the lights go out. Survival is all about making hard decisions. No one wants to think about this, but in a life or death situation, you might need to make decisions about who gets resources and who doesn't. It might sound harsh, but that's the reality of survival. And here's the thing about woke culture. It loves to talk about equality and fairness, but when it comes to a survival scenario, there's no room for that idealism. If your family is starving and there's only 1 meal left, you're not going to start taking a poll about who's the most marginalized. You'll have to make the tough choice. Do you feed your kids first, or do you share it with others? Survival isn't about fairness. It's about getting through the day. Period. Now this one's a biggie. Woke culture loves virtue signaling. It's all about making sure everyone knows how woke and progressive you are, right? But guess what? When you're freezing in the woods or trying to build a shelter, your Instagram followers aren't going to help you. Woke culture loves to talk, but survivalism is about action. It's about knowing how to start a fire, purify water, and build a shelter. That's what keeps you alive when society collapses. Here's the final point. Woke culture thrives on idealism. It's a utopian view of how the world should work, but in the real world, when the systems we rely on break down, those ideals aren't going to help you. Imagine trying to negotiate your survival with someone who's more concerned about being politically correct than actually staying alive. In the apocalypse, there's no room for debate. You need to be adaptable, tough, and able to handle things head-on. The reality is, when things get tough, idealism doesn't count. What counts is your ability to take action and make sure you and your loved ones stay safe. So, if you want to survive the apocalypse, you need to stop focusing on being woke and start focusing on being prepared. The world doesn't care about your pronouns when you're starving or freezing. What matters is having the skills and mindset to thrive when everything goes to hell. Don't be that person who spends their time debating while the world falls apart. Be the person who's ready no matter what. It's time to get real about survival. Want to learn how to prepare for the worst and make sure you're ready for whatever comes next? Make sure you subscribe and check out the links below, because trust me, you don't want to wait until it's too late. Check out my full guide to surviving the apocalypse, including the ultimate survival kit and prepping essentials. Links in the comments and description. Stay sharp, stay strong, and stay prepared.